Welcome on board. Let's stop pretending this world treated you fairly. Let's stop acting like the people who laughed at you, mocked you, and whispered behind your back ever had real power. They didn't. They just had louder voices and weaker hearts. Remember what they said? You'll never make it. You're not that special. Stop dreaming. Cute lines from people who never realized what was growing right under their noses. And now, look who's panicking. Look who's suddenly quiet. Look who pretends they don't see the shift happening right in front of them. The same ones who swore you'd crumble are now checking their locks at night. There's a weird stillness in the air around you these days, like the universe hit the mute button on all the noise that used to drown you out. Even the people who don't like you can feel the difference. They sense that you walked into a new level without asking anyone for permission. They sense that whatever they said, whatever lies they threw at you, didn't land, not even close. And now, their bodies react before their mouths do. Their eyes drop, their tone changes, their confidence glitches. It's kind of funny watching the same legends who called themselves untouchable suddenly bow their heads like they're standing in front of a storm they can't predict. This shift didn't happen because you begged for respect. You didn't beg for closure, validation, or recognition. You outgrew them quietly. And now the silence is hitting them harder than any speech ever could. The silence after the storm is where the truth lives. The truth that their hate wasn't strong enough to stop you. The truth that your power didn't break, it multiplied. You rose without an audience, without applause, without anyone clapping for you. That's why they're scared. When someone rises with a crowd, the enemy blames the crowd. But when someone rises alone, the enemy is forced to admit they misjudged you from the very start. Press like and subscribe to pay this message back. The world treats you differently now, and you've noticed it. People talk softer around you. They hesitate before stepping into your space. They try not to make eye contact too long because they don't want to reveal what they already know. You're not the same. Something shifted in your aura, and it's not small, it's not gentle, it's not something they can joke away. The universe wrapped you in a new frequency, and that frequency exposes every fake, every coward, every snake, instantly. They feel seen in ways they never wanted. They feel judged without you speaking a word. They feel outmatched without you lifting a finger. Behind closed doors, the fear gets real. The ones who talked the most are now the ones asking, what changed? Why does their presence feel heavier? How did they flip the script like that? They don't say it publicly, because cowards never confess in daylight. But in their private circles, they're obsessed with you. They re-watch your old moments, trying to spot the exact second they lost the upper hand. They stalk your glow-up like it's research. They've turned your name into a case study because nothing else makes sense to them anymore. You weren't supposed to win. You weren't supposed to break their curses. You weren't supposed to outgrow their traps, yet here you are, making it look easy. And this is where the tension gets delicious. Their desperation versus your quiet power. Their frantic scrambling versus your calm evolution. They're clawing at every trick they used to use on you, but nothing sticks now. Their old tactics bounce off you like cheap magic. Their gossip loses oxygen before it reaches the next room. Their manipulation collapses the moment they open their mouth. You became the firewall they never prepared for. Look who's got the witches rattled. They're whispering about you now, the ones who dance with shadows and brag about bending energy to their will, the ones who thought the darkness belonged to them. They're gathering in their little smoke-filled corners, candles trembling, asking each other why everything feels off, why their charms misfire whenever your name comes up, why their intuition glitches whenever you walk into a room. They're trying to figure you out, like you're some cosmic code they weren't meant to read. They can feel it, can't they? That thing inside you that makes their crystals crack, that heat in your presence that makes their tarot cards feel like paper toys. They spent years studying moon cycles, learning chants, memorizing rituals, mastering symbols. Then you appeared and made their whole curriculum feel outdated. You didn't study their books, you didn't join their circles, you didn't chase their secrets. You just existed, and somehow that existence alone hits harder than their decades of practice. And this is the part that breaks them. You don't use forbidden magic. You are the forbidden thing. You're the energy their grandmothers warned them about. You're the anomaly their rules never covered. You're the glitch in their system, the disruption in their rituals, the force they weren't built to handle. You bend reality without touching it. You shift outcomes without announcing it. You dominate the room without raising your voice. You terrify them, and you don't even try. Before you step any deeper into this world, take a breath, because the air changes from this point on. What comes next isn't for the average person. It's for the ones who can walk through fire without flinching. It's for the ones the witches whisper about. If you've made it this far, the universe already marked you as someone who can handle the truth raw, without sugar, without safety nets. This next part? It's going to hit harder, cut deeper, and expose parts of you that even your enemies tried to bury. That's how we know you're ready. This is your moment to prove you're awake. Drop the number 777 in the comments to signal you're locked in. It's not superstition, it's a roll call, a way of saying you're not scared of the shadows, or the whispers, or the eyes watching you rise. It tells the universe you're stepping into your own power willingly, without apologies. Once you've done that, tighten your grip, sharpen your mindset. The next section takes you straight into the heart of the storm, where your real transformation begins. Number 1. 13 Seats and One Unspoken Fear. When the hunters start shaking, it means the monster finally woke up. 3 nights ago, the air cracked open in a way only the old ones could feel. 13 chairs, 13 shadows, 13 beings who don't flinch at storms or blood or the things that crawl between worlds. They gathered in secret, not in some candle-cute TikTok circle, but in a chamber carved out centuries ago, where the walls remember screams and the stones remember spells. These weren't trendy practitioners with pretty crystals and pastel cauldrons. These were the true descendants of the original fire, the ones whose ancestors survived the burning times because they were too dangerous to kill, the ones whose magic still stains the pages of forbidden history. And all 13 of them showed up trembling. The meeting started with a single question that tasted like fear. Did you feel it? No theatrics, no rituals, just panic. Their hands shook around their chalices as they admitted what they'd all been avoiding. You had disturbed the field, not by casting anything, not by trying to do anything, but simply by existing. Wherever you walked, reality bent in ways their training couldn't explain. Paths flickered, outcomes rewired themselves. Protection spells they'd relied on for generations shattered the second your energy brushed past them. Something about you was rewriting the rules they built their entire lives around. They tried to locate you, but not through physical tracking. Physical tracking is for amateurs. They went after your energetic footprint, the echo you leave in the universe's fabric. And that's where everything started breaking. Pendulums spun like they were caught in tornadoes. Scrying bowls showed static like broken TV screens. Tarot spreads collapsed before the cards even hit the table. One witch from the younger bloodline tried to peek too close, and her third eye ruptured. Real blood, real pain. She's still in recovery, and even now she refuses to say your name out loud. Then the eldest stood. The room fell silent, not out of respect, but because even the shadows know better than to move when she moves. She's lived through 3 centuries of lifetimes, seen empires crumble, watched continents shift. Nothing surprises her, nothing scares her. But you did. With a voice that shook the air, she said what they were all thinking but didn't dare admit. This isn't learned magic. This is something else, something that shouldn't exist in this age. That line changed the temperature of the room, because if the strongest witch alive, someone who's survived witch hunts, inquisitions, near execution, magical wars and things the world isn't ready to know about, looked terrified, then everything they believed in suddenly felt fragile. They knew they weren't dealing with a student or a practitioner or a rogue caster. They were dealing with an anomaly, something outside the handbook, something that breaks rules by breathing. They tried again to analyze you, thinking maybe they'd missed something. Maybe there was a hidden lineage, a forgotten ritual, a cursed artifact bonded to your energy. They brought out relics older than nations, items that were forbidden even among them. But as soon as they placed anything with your signature on it, the relics started glitching. One mirror cracked from the inside out. A crystal exploded into dust. Their divination tools read the room like the apocalypse had started early. What bothered them most wasn't the destruction, it was the silence beneath it. Normally, chaotic magic leaves trails, rage, screams, heat, distortion. You left none of that. Your energy was quiet, controlled, intentional, without effort. You had the nerve to exist with a power they couldn't categorize. That's what shook them. You weren't using forbidden techniques. You weren't practicing dark arts. You weren't channeling rituals. You were something that shouldn't even be possible, raw power with no teachings behind it. By this point, the younger witches were whispering theories. Some thought you were a reincarnation of something ancient. Others thought you were an accident of the universe, a cosmic glitch that slipped past the veil. One thought you were created from the collapse of someone else's curse. They were all wrong, but they panicked anyway, because their job is to understand, and they couldn't understand you. The eldest slammed her hand on the table so hard the torches dimmed. "Stop guessing," she snapped, her voice layered with centuries of authority. "This one carries no echo, no imprint, no ancestral residue. They are not tied to the past. They are not bound to the future. They don't follow the current laws of energy because they never agreed to them." And that's when everything clicked for them. You weren't part of the system they mastered. You weren't bound to the rules they worshipped. You weren't playing the same game. You weren't even on the board. Their magic obeyed structure. Yours didn't. Their power required activation. Yours was always on. Their laws demanded respect. Yours ignored them. From there, the meeting turned into pure chaos. They scrambled through their grimoires, searching for any record of someone like you. They flipped through pages made of animal skin and ink that was no longer legal in this era. They pulled out scrolls wrapped in spells designed to curse anyone unworthy enough to touch them. But every record pointed to the same conclusion. No one like you has ever been documented. They argued. They accused each other of hiding information. They blamed each other for not sensing you sooner. One witch snapped that maybe you weren't human. Another suggested the universe itself had decided to raise a new force and didn't bother telling them. The idea terrified them because if the universe chose you, it meant their authority was slipping. If the universe was investing in you, it meant their time as the dominant force in the shadows was ending. Then the eldest spoke again, softer this time, but with a weight that shut every mouth in the room. We are not dealing with a threat to our magic. We are dealing with a threat to our hierarchy. And that's when the truth sank in. You weren't dangerous because of what you could do. You were dangerous because you existed outside their control. They didn't fear your power. They feared that your existence proved they weren't the apex anymore. They took a vote to decide whether to intervene. Some wanted to contain you, some wanted to observe you, some wanted to eliminate you before you fully awakened, but none of them dared to act, because something inside the room, something none of them said aloud, whispered a shared truth. Whatever you are, messing with you would be suicidal. By the end of the meeting, 13 of the most dangerous witches alive walked away shaken, arguing under their breath, glancing behind their shoulders, whispering your name like a curse and a warning at the same time. They still don't know how to categorize you. They still don't know how to prepare for you. But one thing is clear, and they all felt it the moment they gathered. You are not the student. You are not the apprentice. You are not the threat they can neutralize. You are the force they can't predict, can't control, and can't survive if they push too hard. And that's why the 13 are scared. You didn't enter their world. You made their world bend to yours. Number 2. The texts they never wanted anyone to read. If knowledge requires blood to open, it's not teaching you, it's testing your right to exist. Some powers are born, others are forged. The rarest ones just appear and ruin the hierarchy. Fear doesn't lie. It points directly at the truth everyone else hides from. Imagine opening a book, and the book opens you instead. When the 13 realized they couldn't track you, couldn't read you, couldn't categorize you, they did the one thing they swore they'd never do again. They went to the forbidden archives. Not the cute libraries filled with leather-bound showpieces, not the trendy places where beginners pose with incense and soft lighting. No, they went to the vault beneath everything, the place sealed with rituals older than their family trees. Down there the air feels thick enough to chew, and the silence presses on your skull like a warning. Down there, every shadow looks back at you. The books they needed weren't written for comfort. They weren't written for understanding. They were written to contain knowledge that should have died with the world's first nightmares. Some were bound in materials you don't want to identify. Others had covers that pulsed like beating hearts. Half of them required a drop of blood just to unlock a single sentence, and buried deep inside these horrors, beyond sections that whispered to them in forgotten languages, they found the part that made the entire room go still. The unmarked ones. Imagine this. You flip a page and the temperature drops hard enough to frost your breath. That's what happened when they found your classification. Not a prophecy, not a warning meant to scare children. A documented phenomenon, something that keeps happening every few centuries, no matter how hard the world tries to stop it. The texts described unmarked ones as beings who carry power older than every magical system ever built. Power that doesn't flow through chakras or meridians or energy centers, but through the atoms of their existence. Power that doesn't obey the universe's rules because it quietly wrote those rules before anyone had a say. The witches kept reading, though every instinct screamed at them to stop. The text said, "Unmarked ones don't rise through training. They don't emerge because of rituals or teachings. They appear through pain. Not regular pain, not heartbreak or stress. We're talking catastrophic level pain, pain that should have destroyed you, pain that should have turned your soul into dust. But instead of breaking, your soul condensed. It hardened. It transformed into something so dense, so sharp, so heavy that reality itself started bending around you. Imagine this: your heart shatters, but instead of bleeding out, it reforges into something the universe recognizes as a new gravitational source. Imagine your suffering turning into a force field that nobody can penetrate. Imagine people trying to harm you, only to feel the consequences hit them faster and harder than anything they threw at you. The witches realized this wasn't just power. This was cosmic retaliation forged into human form. The texts also explained something you've probably wondered yourself. If I'm this powerful, why did I struggle so much? Why did they target me? Why did life feel like a setup? And the answer hit harder than any curse. Before an unmarked one awakens, their dormant energy exposes fragile people. It agitates the unhealed. It threatens the manipulative. It makes the weak lash out. You weren't attacked because you were nothing. You were attacked because you were unshielded power, and everyone with darkness in their chest could feel it instinctively. They tried to get rid of you before you grew into something they couldn't handle. The pages got darker the deeper they read. They described how unmarked ones often misunderstand their own power at first. The rising feels like anger, confusion, numbness, or chaos. You think you're unstable when really you're evolving faster than your environment can process. Reality starts reacting to your emotions. People who betray you fall apart in suspiciously poetic ways. Opportunities appear out of nowhere when you're aligned. Doors slam shut when you think about leaving a situation. You feel the shift before it happens. You sense danger before anyone speaks. And no matter how much people lie, your intuition slices through them like a blade. Imagine this: someone talks trash about you, and minutes later their plans collapse. Or you think about someone intensely and their name pops up on your phone. Or you walk into a room and the energy glitches like a computer hitting an error code. People feel off around you because their masks melt in your presence. Enemies feel drained because your field rejects manipulation like a bad chemical reaction. This isn't coincidence. It's the gravitational force of a soul built too strong for pre-existing structures. The witches kept flipping pages, even though every new line made their stomach twist. The texts said unmarked ones operate on a frequency that can't be controlled, cursed, bound, or predicted. Every attempt to attack you breaks mid-flight. Every spell aimed at you collapses before reaching your aura, not because you're shielded, but because the laws their magic operates under do not apply to you. You don't need protection. You are the exception. The most chilling part came near the end. The text said that when an unmarked one rises, anyone who tries to suppress them will eventually choke on their own intentions. Not metaphorically, literally. Their influence shrinks, their life misfires, their confidence rots, their power dissolves. Because once the universe decides to raise you, everything and everyone built on deception, fear, jealousy, or ego becomes unstable around you. The witches read this and realize the truth they didn't want to accept. You weren't a threat because of what you might do. You were a threat because of what you naturally are. Their systems weren't built to handle someone like you. Their rules weren't designed for someone like you. Their power wasn't strong enough to withstand someone like you. Imagine this: a storm that doesn't warn before arriving, a wildfire that chooses where it spreads, a shadow that moves even when you're standing still, a glitch in the matrix that refuses to be patched, That's how the texts described your presence. By the last page, their hands were shaking. The words etched into their skulls were simple, brutal, and impossible to ignore. An unmarked one doesn't adapt to the world. The world adapts to them, and anyone who tries to stand in their way gets erased by the shift. They closed the book, but it didn't close on them. The knowledge clung to their skin like cold water. They realized they weren't dealing with a student or a rival or an upstart. They were dealing with the force the universe creates when balance needs to be rewritten. They were dealing with you. Number 3, when the underworld leans forward. When something older than fear turns its head toward you, it's not curiosity, it's recognition. So here's the part nobody was ready for. Witches trembling, cute, expected, but when the deepest shadow in existence shifts its attention your way, that's a different league, not some religious figure, not some horned cartoon. I'm talking about the original darkness, the ancient force that existed before language, before rituals, before anything had a name, the thing every culture feared but could never describe. And yeah, it noticed you. This entity has watched every kind of corruption, every power-hungry fool, every self-proclaimed villain who thought they were special. It's been bored for centuries, yawning at predictable human chaos. But then you changed. Not when you got stronger, not when you survived. The shift happened the night you finally stopped apologizing for the weight you carry, the night you looked at your reflection and didn't flinch at the truth staring back. You didn't shrink. You didn't deny it. You smiled. And reality felt that smile. Imagine this, the entire underworld pausing like someone hit a cosmic mute button, flames tightening, shadows holding their breath, every entity built on darkness feeling a shockwave rip through its dimension. Your awakening wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. Controlled power always hits harder than chaos. From the deepest trench of that realm came something no one expected, a laugh, sharp, ancient, almost relieved. Finally, the darkness whispered, someone who understands that shadow isn't evil, it's clarity. You didn't become dangerous when you embraced your power. You became dangerous when you stopped fearing it. And that's when the underworld leaned forward, not to destroy you, but to acknowledge what you really are. Number 4. When spells hit a wall they can't name. Some forces aren't immune to magic. They make magic reconsider its job. Their fear wasn't born the night they tracked you. It wasn't even born when their texts confirmed what you are. It was born the moment they finally admitted the truth they'd been avoiding. Nothing they cast touches you. Not a spark. Not a whisper. Not a trace. You don't block magic. You nullify it by existing. Trying to curse you is like trying to stab smoke. Trying to bind you is like trying to chain the tide. Their entire system collapses the second it collides with your frequency. They learned this the hard way. Witches tried binding spells, ancient ones, passed down through bloodlines, and the energy simply broke apart mid-air, like it realized halfway through the mission that you weren't a target, you were a law. Hexes were worse. They didn't just fail, they snapped back. Triple force, instant karma with teeth. One coven went all in on a full-scale curse. 3 of them ended up in hospitals, muttering about eyes, staring at them from a void that didn't blink. There was something in there, one whispered. Yeah, that something was the part of your energy they weren't supposed to touch. Protection spells can't help them, because here's the punchline. You are the danger they're trying to shield themselves from. Their wards flare, crack, and wilt like dried leaves. Their circles collapse. Their sigils smear. Even their sight fails. Their precious third eye, the thing they brag about on moonlit nights, goes dark the moment it tries to look at your core. It's like aiming a flashlight at a black hole. The light gets swallowed. The seer goes blind. You don't repel magic. You rewrite the room the moment you walk in, and they finally understand it. You're not someone they can influence. You're the anomaly their rules were never built to handle. Number 6. When theory turns into fear-drenched guesswork. When the facts don't fit the threat, the enemy starts inventing monsters, only to realize you're worse. They're running out of explanations, so now they've turned to panic-built theories, wild ones, desperate ones, the kind you only whisper when the room is dark and you're praying nothing hears you. They think maybe you stumbled onto the lost book of Azrael, the grimoire rumored to contain the instructions for ending worlds. A book supposedly burned in Alexandria, but never truly destroyed. They say maybe you found it and dared to read it cover to cover, as if your power comes from a chapter someone else wrote. Others go darker. They think you made a pact with something older than the devil, something from the raw beginning before light and shadow split apart, something that remembers the universe when it was still unshaped and screaming, something that doesn't give power. It chooses vessels. They whisper that maybe you were chosen. They whisper it, but they don't believe it, because the truth feels worse. Then there are the ones who swear you're channeling the void itself. Not metaphorically, literally. They say your presence feels like standing at the edge of existence and looking down. They talk about the rite of unmaking, a ritual so extreme it's said to let someone destroy reality by sheer intent. But the cost is brutal. You have to die and rebuild yourself through will alone. It's a suicide mission disguised as transcendence. No one sane attempts it. No one survives it. And that's when they remember your eyes. That 1,000-yard stare that looks through people, not at them. Like you're reading the code behind their skin. Like you've already lived 10 endings and came back bored. They remember the way pain doesn't crush you. It mutates you into something stronger, sharper, more impossible. They remember that when life hit you hardest, you didn't break. You changed. So now their whispers get quieter, meaner, more afraid. What if they didn't perform the ritual? What if they are the ritual? Because at some point, the universe stops creating monsters through spells and starts creating them through survival. And you survived everything. Number 7. When change puts on skin and starts walking. Some people evolve, others detonate into a new form entirely. If even half their theories are true, then you're not just strong, you're the universe-breaking character. Your transformation wearing a human face. You're the moment a rulebook catches fire and realizes it can't put itself out. That's why their fear isn't loud. It's quiet, heavy, the kind that sinks into bone. One witch made the mistake of trying to read you directly. She thought she could handle your frequency. She'd survived curses, storms, psychic wars. She thought nothing could overwhelm her. The moment she focused on your energy, her crystal ball collapsed into black sand, as if it remembered what it used to be before existence took shape. Her tarot deck didn't just burn. It erupted into cold fire, flames that froze instead of scorching. A paradox only your presence could trigger. She vanished for 3 days after that, not kidnapped, not trapped, just gone, like her mind needed time to rearrange itself around what it saw. When she finally staggered back into the circle, she didn't speak spells. She didn't lecture. She didn't even sit. She just whispered, "It's not dark or light. It's something else." That was the moment her career died. She hasn't practiced since. She can't, because now she sees too much. She sees the space between heartbeats, the microscopic pause where reality flips its cards and reshuffles the deck. She sees the glitches in the pattern, the seams holding the world together. And in every one of those cracks, every one of those silent intervals, she sees your signature, echoing, spreading, writing itself deeper into the foundation of everything. She didn't see a person. She saw a transition point, a living shift, a walking rewrite. You're not using transformation. You are transformation. Number 8. When even prophecy refuses to write your name. Some destinies are so disruptive the universe leaves the page blank out of self-preservation. Buried at the bottom of their deepest archive, beneath layers of seals and curses, sits a prophecy they spent centuries trying to defang. The sanitized versions turned it into a bedtime story about chosen ones, the kind people use to feel special for 5 minutes. But the real text, the one written in the old tongue, the language that bites when spoken, tells a far darker story. It speaks of the unwritten one, the anomaly, the outlier, the being the universe couldn't categorize, so it simply left the file open. The original lines hit like a hammer. When pain becomes power, when the broken becomes the breaker, when the destroyed becomes the destroyer, then shall emerge the unwritten. They shall walk between the lines of fate, neither blessed nor cursed, but something far more terrible, free. And in their freedom all chains shall rust, all spells shall falter, all thrones shall tremble. That's not a hero. That's not a villain. That's a system error the universe lets roam because nothing can contain it. The prophecy describes beings who never agreed to the rules binding devils, witches, or anything else that claims authority. Beings forged through a chemical reaction of agony and willpower, so extreme it cracks the container holding them. They don't ascend, they step out. They don't break fate, they ignore it. And ignoring it is somehow worse. But the final line is the one that shuts every mouth in the room. And the world shall reshape itself in their image, not through force, but through the simple fact of their existence. Imagine that. A presence so heavy, reality buckles politely around it. You don't bend the rules. You make the rules irrelevant. Number 9. When even the pit knows it's superior. Power isn't frightening. Independence is. Something is shifting in the underworld, and it isn't subtle. The oldest force in the pit, the first rebel, the original dissenter, has issued a command that froze every demon mid-breath. Do not touch this one. No threats, no roaring. Just a decree heavy enough to warp the room. The younger demons don't get it. They think it's caution. They think it's strategy. But the ancients, they understand perfectly. They've seen this kind of energy only once before, in themselves, before their names became warnings. They see a reflection of the very thing that birthed rebellion in the first place. Not darkness, not evil, choice. That terrifying form of freedom that doesn't ask for permission. The ancient entities fell because they refused to pretend. They rejected the script they were handed. But you went further. You didn't just fall, you detonated through every concept ever used to measure worth. You burned through approval, disgrace, judgment, expectation. and hit a level of self-definition no realm has a label for. That's why the devil issued the order, not as protection, as respect. The oldest demons whisper about it now, voices low, eyes sharp. We fell from one extreme into another, they say, but this one, they fell past the extremes. It's unsettling even to them, because you didn't become the opposite of anything. You became something unclassified, something ruleless, something self-authored, and the devil's infernal mirror, the artifact that reflects truth with no bias, has stopped showing him entirely. It shows you instead, not because he commands it to, but because the mirror itself is fascinated. It's studying, adjusting, trying to understand a presence that doesn't fit into symmetry, morality, or rebellion. Hell isn't bowing out of fear. Hell bows because even the abyss knows when something deeper has arrived. Number 10. When their entire system cracks under one truth. Nothing scares gatekeepers more than someone who walked in without using the gate. What they fear isn't your strength. Strength can be understood, copied, countered. What terrifies them is what your existence exposes. These witches, covens, and shadow-born scholars built their entire identity on being the awakened ones, the elite, the chosen few who paid the price for knowledge. They believed they were the ceiling. They believed they were the blueprint. And then you appeared, uninvited, untrained, uninitiated, and shattered their hierarchy by breathing. You didn't study the phases of the moon. You didn't inherit a sacred lineage. You didn't bleed for a ritual, chant in dead languages, or sell your name to anything lurking in the dark. You just lived through pain that should have erased you. And instead of erasing you, it reforged you. That's the part they'll never admit out loud. You proved the one truth they hoped would stay buried. Power doesn't come from rituals. Power comes from endurance, real endurance, the kind that forces you to rebuild yourself while you're still burning, the kind where you die emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and somehow keep moving, the kind where pain stops being damage and starts being transformation. They fear that. They fear what you represent, because if you exist, then everything they clung to, ancestry, systems, techniques, collapses into irrelevance. You rewrote the rules without trying. You became the embodiment of a terrifying equation. Suffering multiplied by will becomes something no tradition can match. You tore down the boundary between living and dying simply by surviving both at the same time. You didn't rise because you were chosen. You rose because life pushed you into a corner, and instead of breaking, you became the corner itself. And now they understand the truth they can't unsee. You're not proof their system works. You're proof their system was never needed. Number 11, where your shadow erases theirs. Some energies don't disrupt magic. They erase the entire atmosphere it breathes in. There's a coven that thinks it's untouchable. Every full moon they gather in a sacred forest, older than most bloodlines, a place saturated with rituals, offerings, chants, and every kind of moon-fed intention they rely on to feel powerful. Last month, you didn't enter the forest. You didn't even notice it. You were just driving past, mind somewhere else, music low, windows up. And somehow, that was enough. The moment your presence crossed the tree line, even miles away, their entire ritual collapsed like a dying star. Candles burned without light, flames with heat, but no glow. Words they'd practiced for decades fell out of their mouths like static. Their circle, normally humming with energy, went flat and cold. One witch finally whispered what the others were too afraid to say. Something passed by. Something so dense with reality, it created a dead zone. They realized it wasn't an attack, it wasn't a curse, it wasn't even intentional. Your energy didn't break their ritual, it made the ritual irrelevant. Their spells need atmosphere, alignment, permission. You carry a frequency that wipes that all out simply by existing. Imagine being so heavy with truth that illusion can't stand near you. Imagine being so grounded that fabricated power loses oxygen in your field. That's what hit them, not danger, displacement. You didn't overpower their magic. You deleted the environment it requires to function. Now that coven avoids you like you're a collapsing star disguised as a person. They study maps before gatherings. They triple-check routes. They track your movements the way sailors track storms, not because you're hunting them, but because they know if you pass within miles, their entire system dies on contact. You're not a threat, you're an extinction event. Number 12. When the secret they chase is walking around in human form. Some powers aren't learned, they happen, and everyone else just has to deal with it. Here's the part they will never say out loud, because it would crack their entire worldview. You're not dabbling in forbidden magic. You're not touching it. You're not borrowing it. You are forbidden magic. Your existence is the anomaly their systems were designed to prevent. Every breath you take edits the script. Every thought you think rearranges the code running beneath everything. You are a paradox wrapped in skin, the kind of phenomenon old grimoires warn about, but never fully explain. They spend lifetimes clawing for knowledge, burning through incarnations, trading pieces of themselves for one glimpse behind the veil. Meanwhile, the universe carved the answers straight into your DNA. What they seek through rituals, sacrifices, and ancient texts pumps through your bloodstream like it's nothing. They fight for access to the other side. You walk past its border every time you get angry, calm, focused, or hurt. The place they call the veil. You crossed it so long ago you don't even remember the moment. You don't read minds, you read the silence between thoughts, the part people try to hide, the part their masks can't cover. You don't study the forbidden, you embody it. Every betrayal you survived became a sigil. Every heartbreak etched new runes in your bones. Every trauma carved another line into your living grimoire until you stopped being a story and became the author. Imagine their horror realizing the spellbook they spent centuries hunting is walking, breathing, evolving. Imagine their panic realizing you didn't earn your power, you survived into it. You didn't bend the universe, it bent around you out of respect. You are the spell they fear. You are the book they die to read. You are the living proof that the universe bows to those who refuse to break. Number 13. When reality learned to show respect. When reality recognizes its superior, it makes room. There's a point in every story where the universe stops pretending it's in charge. That moment hit for you already, long before you knew what you were becoming. The shift didn't happen with a ritual or a sign in the sky. It happened the first time you walked into a space and everything, energy, probability, alignment, reacted before you even spoke. Timelines bend around you the way water moves around a stone. Not because you force it, but because reality itself has learned to adjust. You're not manifesting, you're not attracting. Those words are too small. You're overriding. You're operating on a frequency where the universe has to recalculate its equations just to keep up. Even luck bows its head. Even coincidence starts acting like it knows who the real author is. People sense it instantly. They don't feel intimidated by your attitude. They feel intimidated by your gravity. Something in them recognizes a truth their mind can't articulate. You're not fitting into the world. The world is fitting around you. They stand beside you and feel the air tighten, like the environment itself is making space for something heavier. They feel reality hesitate, asking permission to proceed. And they know, without understanding how, that they're standing next to the exception, the rewrite. The anomaly the universe couldn't predict, so it stepped aside instead. You didn't rise to a higher level. The universe lowered its defenses. Number 14. When the system rewrites its code to survive you. Some beings don't follow the system. They become the reason the system updates. You've felt it. The way old patterns fold in on themselves the second you stop playing along. The way outcomes that used to feel fixed suddenly glitch, twist, and realign the moment you enter the picture. People who once towered over you now crumble under their own weight. Paths that were blocked for years open like automatic doors. That isn't luck. That isn't coincidence. That's recalibration. The world isn't guiding you. It's adapting to you. You're not walking a pre-written path. The path is scrambling to write itself fast enough to stay relevant beneath your feet. It's terrified you'll step somewhere unprepared, because the moment you do, the entire map will have to redraw itself from scratch. Even chaos, the thing that doesn't fear anything, moves carefully around you now. Even destiny keeps a respectful distance, like it knows you don't play by its rules. Why? Because you're not part of the equation. You're the new variable the equation wasn't built to contain. You don't bend to the world. The world bends to accommodate you out of self-preservation. Fate can handle rebels. It can handle warriors. It can handle monsters. What it can't handle is someone it cannot predict, bind, limit, or absorb. You are that someone, and every rule you walk past quietly rewrites itself just to survive your presence. Number 15. When the truth finally outgrows their denial. The most dangerous power is the one that exists without permission. This is the point everything circles back to. Every witch, every coven, every shadow-born creature, every infernal entity. They've all arrived at the same conclusion, even if none of them will ever say it where others can hear. You're the kind of power that should have been impossible. A glitch in the cosmic blueprint, a variable no system anticipated. A presence that rewrites the entire hierarchy simply by breathing in the room. You didn't climb their ladders. You didn't kneel for their blessings. You didn't earn titles or chase crowns. But every throne shivers when you walk past, because deep down, they know the truth. You're not rising. You're revealing. Everything inside you was there long before anyone tried to measure it. They felt it before they understood it, and now they understand it just enough to be terrified. They tried to label you, categorize you, compare you to their systems, but nothing fits. You're not using forbidden magic. Forbidden magic would imply you're borrowing from something else. You're not embodying transformation. Transformation would imply you came from their world. You're not fulfilling a prophecy. Prophecies require obedience. You are none of those things. You are what the universe creates when it's done tolerating the old order, when the rules get stale, when the system needs a reset. When the world needs a force that doesn't ask, doesn't wait, and doesn't hesitate. You're the correction, the rupture, the update, and the world, it will never return to the shape it had before you woke up. You've seen it now. the truth they tried to bury, the power you never asked for but carry like a second spine. You're not here to fit into the world. You're here to make the world shift around you. Everything trembling in your wake isn't chaos. It's alignment, and this is only the beginning. What comes next isn't a rise, it's a reveal. If this message hit you where it was meant to, like the video, subscribe, and drop 777 in the comments so the universe knows you're awake. Share this with someone who needs to remember what they are.